Can Luis Scott-Vargas win this thing and come back and draft tomorrow? Let's find out. Has to get through Liam Etelson here to do it. Watching Luis play all weekend long has been an absolute masterclass in making it work.
Yep, and a lot of little edges we've seen from Luis over the course of playing these games in terms of sequencing, in terms of playing enters the battlefield, tap 2 lands in a particular order with an eye towards particular gold cards on time. There's a lot of little edges going on with Luis's game here that you won't really see because it involves sequencing in his hand. And you wouldn't really assume it either because Luis plays so fast. But he is no stranger to 5-color decks that involve a lot of enters the battlefield tap lands. And so there's a lot going on in these early turns in terms of Luis setting up his mana to be able to cast the stuff he's looking to cast.
One play for Luis so far, that is Dragonfire Blade. He's done a lot of good work with this card this weekend. +2/+2, hexproof and mono-colored.
Yes. With his legend in particular. Oh, no!
Don't counter his globe, Liam! Oh my god!
That is Luis's favorite card. And now it's serious mode.
Yeah, now Luis is like...
might have been a friendly match before. It is not a friendly match now.
No way. Oh, we've got a Sika here as a play from Liam Etelson. Haven't seen that card yet on coverage today. Excuse me, Eshki Dragonclaw. Doesn't matter, it's dead. It had Vigilance Trample Ward 1.
You know, a lot of competitive players like to talk about, you know, the commanderification of Magic and standard releases. There's pros and cons. It does make covering sealed a challenge. There's a lot of legends. They have names and titles, jobs, lore, and backstory that can make it a little tricky sometimes calling the action at a good pace.
Teaming Dragonstorm, though, that's just a good quality bread and butter limited card. Play it, get 2 2/2s.
One of your favorites.
It absolutely is. I'm always tempted to take it, pack one, pick one.
And talk about doing work over the course of this tournament.
Oh, yeah.
This, alongside the Blade, has put Luis's opponents in the abyss starting on turn 4 or 5 in some of the games that we've covered.
Absolutely. This little 2/1 has Indestructible. When it connects, you get to cast cards from the top of your opponent's deck if you hit something that's equal to the amount of damage you did, which is why Luis's deck is set up to be able to buff this creature by putting the Blade on it, for instance, or various counters that Sultai provides.
Yeah, you get an exponential payoff off of this thing if you are able to grow its power, both with the range of cards it hits and the ceiling on the cards that you can hit. And so Luis has been, I wouldn't necessarily say going out of his way. I think these are all cards he'd be interested in playing for a variety of reasons. But we've seen it do a lot of work, and it's particularly good with the Blade because that equip cost is so low.
Karakit Guardian was the play there from Liam, which is a card we've also seen just a house this weekend. 6/5 hexproof until it deals damage. Team Ertani back here. The play for Luis Scott-Vargas is going to draw and discard. And going to pass back, I'm sure, over to Liam. Discards this Karu Goldkeeper, which is a nice one to discard as well because he can put a counter on a creature from the graveyard. Give it flying.
Yeah, Liam's going to have a little bit of a cushion here before he really has to worry about, getting omniscience off of his own deck. Because he's got the 2/2s on the ground here, he can refire here and get up to another 2. Now, those 2/2s aren't really valuable in terms of being able to attack into a 2/1 indestructible, but in terms of being able to cushion against that hit trigger, Liam's got quite a bit of time here.
See what Liam wants to do here. Sitting at 23 life, Luis at 22. Both players very comfortable at this stage in the game. Tapping 5. All right, we're going to make an elephant.
Not something Luis has to be worried about in the immediate term. Again, with a 2/1 indestructible back on defense. Some cushion here, but what's going on in the air? we're going to need a pretty quick response to that.
Yeah, that's 6 damage coming across Vigilance, by the way. Luis down to 16. We can see it being pulled halfway out of its sleeve to mark that it doesn't have hexproof anymore as it has done damage.
Well, I think it might have been both. I initially assumed the same thing, but
Oh.
also the sleeve might have split because it got replaced. So,
Oh.
but it's still halfway out of the sleeve. So it could be both at the same time.
Yes, yes. Get yourself some dragon shields, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you wouldn't have that problem. Dragonshield.com. Couple promo codes available. Case sensitive. Right under there, under Luis. Dragonshield.com. Dragonshield.com.
Dragonshield.com.
.com.
Do you remember that 90s website? Zombocom.
I don't.
Don't worry, you don't need to.
I don't.
All it does when you go there is it just says, welcome to Zombocom.
I didn't have regular access to the internet until I think around 1999. So there's a lot of early internet memes and tropes that are lost on me, even though I am theoretically of the right vintage.
Count your blessings, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't feel like I missed very much.
Action on Luis here. Boulder-born Dragon is going to be the play. A 3/3 Dragon.
Yeah. Luis is going to have to steal himself from at least one more shot from the 6/5 here.
Oof. He has answers in his deck. Just haven't used any of them yet or found them potentially.
And important to sort of view this through the lens of, dividing the life total by the power that you're getting hit by. Luis at 17, this 6/5 represents a 3-turn clock as things currently look. Now, there's a lot that can distort that. Luis gains 2, and suddenly it's 19, and you're looking at 1. Liam could knock Luis down a little bit and maybe cut out a turn. But both players have to have it on their mind that right now Liam is kind of representing 3 turns as the way things are constituted. Luis obviously has a chump blocker on the board. He has a piece of equipment that can kind of trade, but that's the flow of things right now. And Luis's plays are going to be informed right now by that sort of understanding of 3 turns is what I'm sort of looking at the moment.
Exactly. Going to take another hit here from that dragon down to 11. Teaming Dragonstorm comes back down onto the battlefield as well as an Anok Wayfarer that missed on lands and is now a 2/2. Here we see this exile effect from the Karu goalkeeper to give our friend Kotis flying.
And +2/+2 and the swords on it. So we're looking at 6 power, indestructible, flying. So Liam's options from here are either chump block with the 6/5 or let Luis spin off 6 cards that are 6 mana or more.
Man, I don't know if you can let him do it.
Yep.
Yep, chump. Wow.
I mean, you don't like the chump block, but that was a pretty big investment for Luis there. That was the entire turn. That was a card out of the graveyard. And we're looking at now, 6 attackers against 2 blockers with Luis already kind of low. Now, it's likely to get really bad for Liam next turn if he doesn't have a way to chump block this thing or remove it. But as good as, from Luis's side, you would feel about they chump blocked with their dragon, that's pretty sweet. Liam has a lot of ways to punish Luis for the investment of that turn.
Very true. Let's see how he uses it here this turn. I was taking a look to see if he had an exile effect, Stormplane Detainment. He does not in his deck list.
The flash one is the other big one, and I don't see that one either.
Okay, great. We're able to take care of the Teamer Tawny back here. Put a counter on one of our 2/2s. Is this Narset?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Wow, there we go. Luis Scott-Vargas falling to Liam Etelson here in game 1 of our final round of competition.
And, Luis was definitely threatening something big there. Like I said, you don't like to be
Yeah.
chump blocking with your 6-5s on turn, 6 very often. But Liam did a nice job of kind of developing a wide board in the meantime while chipping in with that 6-5. And even though Luis was threatening the next turn to just have a massive turn, Liam had the resources to close it out.
Yeah, and I feel like if you're Luis, you got to take that chance, right? Like you get the trade of you get the chump block of the 6-5 and the chance to potentially cast cards off the top of his library.
Yeah, I mean that attack, it's kind of both outcomes are good from Luis's perspective, and if he gets out of that turn, he has to feel really good about his spot. And also blocking there, leaving the 2-1 indestructible back on defense.
Not great.
It's not as good as like trying to go for it there, but Liam had the tools to close it out.
Well, we talked about Dragon Shield sleeves in this game. Won't split on you. They're one of our sponsors. Check them out. You can go to Star City's website. Check out Dragon Shield there. We also want to thank Beckett for being one of our sponsors here this weekend. The place to get your cards graded.
And something that I really appreciate about Beckett, if you're into the grading stuff, is they make an effort to attend shows live. There's sometimes if you're in the grading stuff, I'm sending my cards out. I really don't know who's looking at them. I don't know what the process is, whatever. If you go to card conventions, Beckett is regularly there. You can meet the graders. You can talk to them. And there's an extra level of security that you get being able to actually interact with the people who are responsible for decisions that could affect you to the tune of thousands of dollars. So highly recommend Beckett.
I've never had a card graded.
There is something I will say. I was never a huge Pokemon player. Was a little aged out of that game by the time I was kind of coming up. Those cards look sick in a deck.
Yeah.
Magic cards look good too. Something about Pokemon cards. They're just in a Beckett case, as someone who doesn't play, they look awesome. I'm a sports card fan myself. Not huge, but like I have a few things here and there. It's nice for displaying stuff. And Magic cards too. In fact, a little story about Beckett.
All right.
This was a couple of years ago, talked to a dealer. They had a Serendib Ifrit from Arabian Nights. And they're like, look, it's it looks packed fresh. It's been, at the time, they're like, I know this is a high number for it, $400. And I was like, okay, $400. Get the thing. And I'm like, this looks great. Send it down to Beckett. Beckett gets back to me with a 9.5 grade with 3.95 subs. And I sold it for $1,500.
Woo!
You know, to who? Luis Scott-Vargas. To bring it all back together here.
Wow, very nice. Hey, good deal there.
Yep.
Not bad. All right, Luis, we got to go win-win here to come back and draft on day 2. Needs to win this game to keep his tournament hopes alive. Both of the pair of our players here starting things out with dual lands, both at 21. Make that 22 here for Liam. And a tri-land for Luis. God, these tri-lands are great.
They're great, but playing it there on turn 3 is an indication that was the draw step.
Yep. Sunset Strike Master is the play here for Etelson. It's a 3/1. It can blow itself up to kill a dragon for 3 mana. Also taps for a red mana, which is very nice.
And a new part of Red's Color Pie. Just tap for a red. That's something that Wizards of the Coast has said, we're expanding Red's Color Pie a little bit, and now they're going to get mana creatures. Not going to be as efficient as greens, of course. They're not, I don't think Red Llanowar Elves are coming down the pipeline, but this is expression of some new space.
Sure. Do you find it unfair that red gets to tap for mana?
No, I mean, as time goes on, you're talking about a game that's kind of 30 years plus. It's hard to adhere to the color pie that strictly over time if you're going to make as many cards as Wizards does. And so you have to look at spots where you can sort of judiciously add. As long as it's not powerful, it's not the defining characteristic. And I would say of all the colors besides green, I would expect red to be number 2 in line.
Yeah. Teaming Dragonstorm here for Etelson, adding to the board. One matching Luis for his own from the previous turn.
Starting to see it too now with black dabbling a little bit in enchant removal.
Yep.
It's important, from my perspective, for that stuff to not be as good as the way that green and white does it. They should get the best rates, but Yeah, I think having 2 colors defined by not being able to blow up enchantments is pretty intense. So ease up on that. Let that be Red's one of Red's defining characteristics, and give Black some sacrifice stuff, or it's a bad mode tacked onto a murder type design. I think that's fine. A little of that goes a long way too.
An attack here with the 2/2s from Luis. Liam seeing if perhaps he might be able to trade. Trades off 1. In for 2. Follow-up. All right, we're going to take care of the Sunset Strike Master, and then we're going to play the Monastery Messenger and put the 4 damage spell back on the top of the library.
Nice for Luis to take care of the mana creature there before Liam gets an opportunity to deploy some 6s this turn. Set him back at least a little bit.
All right, there we go. Another 5/5 here for Liam. Pass back over to Luis. Liam keeps the pressure coming. We draw the Molten Exhale. All right, here we go. Attacks from Luis, Bird, and 2/2 getting in. All right, Liam's going to block with the 2/2, not the elephant.
Well, if Luis is sending in,
yeah,
and you know that
follow up, yeah.
He put the deal 4 on top, so you get the choice of either trading off or allowing Luis to convert the 4 damage and taking out the 5/5. Now we have an interesting cat and mouse game with the 5/5 versus what's going on with Luis, because this is where the flash on Molten Exile really comes up. That 5/5 is really safe on Liam's turn, assuming Luis does not have a dragon.
Right.
If he does, it's a very different calculation.
Cruel Truths there, the play from Luis as well. Out from the sideboard. Brought in that in the last match as well. All right, Mammoth Bellow here getting harmonized for a second elephant. And then we're going to draw. Focus the mind. Nice.
I don't know if I've seen that played on the discount so far today, which is odd because it is like a pretty defining common. I do love that play there from Liam because, that was a very efficient turn, which didn't end up exposing the 5/5 to block plus removal spell, but Luis had a nice little rope-a-dope there with the counter spell, because otherwise that 4 damage spell wouldn't have had anywhere to go. Luis would have just been down the 2 mana that turn.
Dragonfire Blade Sagu Wilding hit the table for Scott-Vargas. Gain him some life up to 22, and in come the elephants. 2 5/5s into the red zone for Etelson. Takes it down to 12. All right, passing back over to Luis.
Looks like Liam's play has been really tight in this game, thinking about the right stuff.
Yeah.
And, it's when we're doing an event like this, of course, the focus is going to be on Luis and Reed, that are the people we're featuring. It's important to know that most people who touch a Magic card, play competitively, show up to tournaments, play in RCs, whatever, never play a match with the stakes that Liam is playing right now. You're 5-2. You have an opportunity to make the second day. You have an opportunity to beat maybe the greatest player of all time on camera to secure your spot in day number 2.
Yeah.
And it's important to kind of appreciate that moment too, because like I said, most people, even people who play this game for a long time, never get in a moment like this. And, there's potentially a even if there's not a Pro Tour berth at the line on the line at the end of this, is like you get to carry this with you forever. Like, this is a forever moment if you're a competitive Magic player. And I think Liam's played really sharp, and you kind of can see. You can see the pressure a little bit in the body language,
yes.
But Liam is playing a really sharp game right now.
He is, absolutely. I've also been very impressed watching him here this round. I would be shaking in my boots playing against Luis, I'll tell you that.
And as intimidating as Luis is at the table of the spot, I know what's going on in his head right now is I cannot wait to eat dinner and go to bed. That is the only thought on the man's mind right now. But Liam does not know that.
All right, in come the elephants yet again here for Liam. And it looks like the bird's going to have to fall in combat here, chump in front of one of those elephants.
And now Luis can potentially pair the removal spell. Maybe it's just a chump. I assume that Luis has a way to enable this instant speed. Dragon's on the battlefield, so it's beholden. We're good to go.
All right, there we go. Elephant down, falls to Molten Exhale. Back over to Luis here. Must win this game to keep himself alive here in this tournament. His body language is telling me I don't feel like I'm in a great spot.
Yeah. But I feel like we've been watching a lot of Luis get trucked in game one and then kind of worm the way out games 2 and 3. Or that phase could also just be that was a pretty nice draw, and considering whether or not he wanted the dragon or the omen there.
Charring Bite is going to be able to deal with that second elephant token from Liam Etelson. And we're going to shuffle the Twin Maw Stormbrew back into the library. Glacial Dragon Hunt, the follow-up. We're going to discard the globe to kill the Embermouth Sentinel. All right, here we go, and get in with the dragon.
And this is now a one-turn clock.
Liam down to 5. Okay, Liam, can you deal with the Sagu Wildling?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
Luis is locked in.
Yeah, look at him. He's thinking about a burrito.
A burrito. A nap.
Okay, here we go. Jeskai, Shrine Keeper for Liam Etelson. Picks up the Teeming Dragonstorm, attacks here because it has, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you gain a life and draw a card.
And that's a huge swing here, going from 5 to 6. That means Luis does not have it next turn on the board.
And here we play the Dragonstorm once again. Get a couple of 2/2s. Back over to Luis. Can we find an extra point of damage?
And Luis is looking at lethal his turn.
Okay, well, Ice Ridge Serpent can get rid of one of those tokens.
Ooh,
that's that.
This is going to be really close.
Yeah.
Right now, it's really kind of like neither player can attack, but any good draw step just opens it wide open.
And we're going to get another life off this tap land here for Etelson, up to 7, pass back. Luis is living off the top of his deck. All right, we're going to harmonize this Glacial Dragonstorm. Draw a card, discard the turtle. Oh, and kill the dragon! Nice!
Yeah, this is going to force a chump block.
Okay, down goes the 2/2, and Liam goes to 2. Can he deal with this? Another dragon here for Etelson.
Is this the common, or this is the double fire or half fire breather? And that's it.
Wow!
Wow!
Holy cow! unbelievable. And look at that face from Liam Etelson there.